I've never met a man or a person like you that I say horrible things and you lean in and want to hear more from me. And what I learned was all that I learned about interventions and interpretations, and it's worth something. But for her, she just needed to know that there was somebody out there that wanted to hear what it was like for her. And she transformed.
Let's say you were afraid of public speaking and you got a great opportunity to speak on stage in front of like 1,000 people. And this opportunity would absolutely change your entire life, level up every aspect of you. But you're terrified to speak in public. What would you do?
Even at my ripe old age, I still get tripped up. I'll still pigeonhole myself into this place that's reminiscent of when I was, 16 years old. That old historical family of origin trauma pull will pull me back in. And it'll still take me a moment of going, what am I doing? I fell into that same place again.
So in therapy culture, people are often encouraged to talk it out. Do you think modern psychology has overemphasized talking and underemphasized listening?
Yes, 100% yes.
Hey Conscious Man 7 family, quick question before we start. Do you love the depth of these conversations but hate when ads break the flow? I get it. Ads can feel like speed bumps on a highway, pulling you out of that deep zone. That's why we created a way for you to enjoy every episode completely ad-free while supporting the show at the same time. For just a few bucks a month on Patreon or Locals, you'll get full access to uninterrupted episodes. You'll get direct access to me so you can ask me any questions that you have, some cool other perks like early releases, and you'll also help us keep bringing you the powerful conversations that mainstream platforms won't touch. The link is in the show notes. Join us there and be part of this movement. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned because we have some more great content coming soon. What if the reason your relationships fail isn't what you say, but how you listen? Hello friends, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host Todd Cave, and my guest today, Dr. Randall Alifano, believes listening isn't passive. It's the most radical act of love, presence, and strength a man can embody. For over 40 years, Randall has guided people to dismantle their personas, quiet the inner chatter, and come home to raw receptivity. Today, he'll reveal how childhood wounds shape the mask we wear, why advice kills intimacy, and how presence can transform your relationships with your partner, your children, your colleagues, and yourself. This isn't therapy. This is revolution, so let's dive in.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You got to be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it, Randall, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today?
I'm quite well. That was awesome, by the way. That was very well said. Maybe I should interview you.
Well, Randall, when I was checking you out, I had some of my own internal dialogue going on where in the past, I have been told that Todd, you don't really listen to what I am saying and stuff like that. And this was in relationships to give context. So I said to myself, you know what? I know that most men tend to have similar characteristics. We're not all the same, but there's certain traits that we tend to have. And men generally tend to be problem solvers. But with that sort of bait in our DNA, we tend to forget another part, which is actually listening. So we would hear something and we go straight into problem solving mode. And then the other part of listening now, we tend to forget. So when I was looking, well, I was like, you know what? This would be something that not only I could learn, but all of my listeners can learn. And I think even though what we will talk about is mostly about men, focused on men, I think women will also add value because we men do tell women that they don't really listen to us as well. So I think that this is a good conversation to have for both parties. But because I am a man, it will be probably most likely, it will be more talk catered to men. And that's what you specialize in as well. But I think both parties will get some value from this conversation today. So let's start at the beginning. You've said that even in high school, friends came to you with their worries and always left feeling better. Do you remember the first moment you realized listening was your superpower?
Well, I'm not sure I recognize it as a superpower, but the first time I was very conscious of listening and how people don't listen was when I was much younger than high school, sitting around a big Italian family dinner every Sunday and hearing everybody talk over everybody else. And I would sit quietly because I was a young guy, and I would be stunned that everybody's talking and their voices get louder and louder because they so want to be heard. And nobody was listening. Nobody was listening. And I could feel in me the pain, the kind of isolation of what it's like that people are just talking over everybody. And I remember even at that age making a note of, this seems weird. Something's out of balance here. So I took an interest in listening. Even though at that age it wasn't conscious, I would ask questions. I wanted to get to know people. So somehow, when I got to high school, because I asked questions, I wanted to know what it was like from your perspective, people started coming over to my house and would talk to me about whatever. And I was genuinely curious about what's it like for you, especially when a woman would come over. We were friends. It wasn't anything sexual. And they would open up about their boyfriend or their mom or whatever. And I was, what? What was that like? How did that happen? And, I didn't have any brilliant interventions, but I really wanted to hear from them. And so, yeah, typically they would leave feeling a lot better. And of another little fun story, I was at a party in high school and the quarterback of the football team was drunk. And he came to me and he said, "Hey, everybody's here telling me I should talk to you because you're good at that shit." And I said, "Okay." And he just started blathering in a drunken spree. And I thought, okay, yeah, I want to hear. And I asked some questions. And at the end, like a kind of a macho guy, he grabbed me, gave me a big hug and said, "Man, you are good at this shit," and walked out. And I was like, I have no idea what just happened, but I'm glad it felt good to you.
Wow, that's very interesting. I mean, I guess listening was something that you've been doing for from the time you can remember then subconsciously.
Yeah, I think something about how I was born, or even at that early age with my family of origin, hearing what was lacking and wanting to fill in that void.
Well, I can definitely agree with you in terms of what an Italian tables look like because I have dated an Italian girl for many years, and it's true. Around the table, it gets loud. Very passionate people, loud. So I can totally get where you're coming from. So you've also shared that your childhood wasn't perfect and that the wounds you carried shaped the persona you built to protect yourself. Can you walk us through what that persona looked like and how you began to see through it?
Yeah, I think this is something that's applicable for every human being on the planet. Robert Stollerow came up with this great term called organizing principle, that just in our family of origin, they teach us principles. Like if you're a boy, don't cry, you should throw a football better, whatever it is. And those principles become organized, and then our life can become narrow as we get, in this world, I have to be this way. So we become very narrow in our focus about who we are and what we're allowed to do. And that's one of the reasons why I love listening, because as a therapist, when I speak to people, they come in like this, and then they start opening up and seeing more of themselves than just what was programmed into them through childhood. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. And then, like, since I've like started this show and I've had so many conversations, and then also when it include my awakening process, it's mad how when we're born, we're given a name, a race, a nationality, and then most of the time a religion. These are four things that we didn't choose. We were just given. And we create like this identity associated with, okay, well, I'm Black, so this is what being Black means. I'm Italian, so this is what Italian looks like. Then because I was born in Barbados, this is how I'm supposed to behave, and these are my mannerisms, X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And it's kind of mad how like the programming and starts from, and I mean, it's not our parents' fault because they don't know any better, because that's how they were programmed as well, right?
Right.
And in terms of like boys, for sure, you're told, don't cry, can't be weak, you can't be soft, and buckle up, soldier, fix your socks. Right. You can have many different terms, and it kind of like shapes our personality. And I mean, I do think that there's an element of it that's good, in the sense where, because men have certain more sort of like, they're more attuned to certain things like hard work and stuff like that, because we're physically stronger. I think that there are good traits to it, but then it gives us like a blind side where we're not able to express feelings or emotions or even listen, because it's all about being assertive, because assertiveness is very masculine, but that's how you get ahead. That's how, because in the world of men compete against men. So it's always about competition to try to improve. So it is kind of like, now that we're adults, that we have to like deconstruct and deprogram some of those things to bring in the blind spots that we have, to add to the positives and the strengths that we were given from that same mindset. So there's some decoupling to do to then come back forward.
Well said. I agree with that absolutely. And that so directly impacts listening. Because if you're a Black man who's raised Jewish and I'm a white man who's raised Catholic, we're different until we start talking with each other. And then, you may have some cultural differences than I have, but when we really talk and listen to each other, we're brothers. There's very, very little that's different about us, except maybe I make a better lasagna than you do or something like that. The important things we find under those, what you call the programming, what I call filters, that the more we can wash away filters, the more I realize you're my brother, she's my sister, we're all in this together. So to me, listening rather than speaking is really the heart of finding communion. It's a meditation.
Wow. A meditation. That's a very interesting word to use.
That's how I am in my practice. I'm meditating while I'm sitting with people. I'm quiet, I'm breathing, and my mind is quiet so I can really receive what's being spoken.
Okay. Wow, you take this to another level, man.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay. So, with over 40 years of integrating psychology and spirituality, what moment most powerfully revealed to you that true healing comes through listening, not fixing?
That's a great question. Okay, so when I first started in my practice 40 years ago, a psychiatrist who took a liking to me set me up in an office and started referring clients to me. And one of the first people he sent to me, he said, she has some anxiety. And I thought, okay. She came in, and after a couple of weeks, she started telling me stories about her history, what happened to her as a child. And there were stories that Stephen King wouldn't be able to hear. It was horrible. I mean, horrible, like cult abuse from birth on. And I was completely in over my head. I had never heard that people were treated like this. Nothing in my education taught me how to deal with it. And I thought the only thing I know how to do is listen. And I thought, it's such horror that she's communicating to me about what happened to her when she was a little kid, that it wasn't about healing her. It was about really listening. So at least she could know that somebody out here in the world wants to get what it was like for her. And that's the feedback she would give me. She'd say, I've seen so many therapists. She was probably 45 when I started seeing her. And I could tell right away their level of listening, how much they could stand hearing about my horrible stories. I've never met a man or a person like you that I say horrible things and you lean in and want to hear more from me. And what I learned was all that I learned about interventions and interpretations, and it's worth something. But for her, she just needed to know that there was somebody out there that wanted to hear what it was like for her. And she transformed. And she told her psychiatrist and her doctor, and pretty soon I was getting these referrals of folks who were brutally mistreated as children. Still didn't know what the hell to do except listen. But they all said the same thing, which is, I could never talk about this with anybody because I could tell they would get anxious and they would pull back. They didn't know what to say or do. And I thought, right. I think the good thing I did is I stopped putting pressure on me to say or do anything for you. I just wanted to hear what it was like for you. And that was an incredible lesson to me. So even when I wrote the book, I kind of give a lot of credit to those folks who taught me, shut up. I don't need your brilliant interpretations. I just want to be able to not be alone in this pain anymore. And I thought, wow, you're the folks who really taught me how to do this more than anything I learned in my education.
Wow. Like I said before, you've taken listening to another level, and that's a very, very interesting skill. And, you know, there's sort of like a concept in the red pill community that women just want to be heard. And what you're saying confirms that, you know, so I do think that listening is a really important skill. And my mother always used to say to me, Todd, you know, Sundays is not all about talking all the time. It's about listening to what people say. And now that I do interviews, I end up doing a lot of listening because I don't like to interrupt my guests so much. And I try to bring out the best out of them and try to make them look good so that people can get value. And so what's happening to me now is because when I first started my podcast, and I was the person doing all the talking because I had very controversial stuff to say about our ancient hidden history and religion and consciousness and stuff like that. But then as I transitioned now to having my own show, then that particular skill, I sort of have been fine tuning and refining and stuff like that. And now to hear you saying these things, it kind of confirms to me, well, actually, I'm on the right path. And this show has actually made me grow a hell of a lot. So, wow, thanks for that distinction.
Good. Tell your mama I appreciate her.
She definitely will say thank you. You're welcome, because she listens to all of my shows. And she's probably my biggest supporter. And I remember when I first said I'm going to do this show, I'm kind of lucky because my mother never told me no for anything that I wanted to do. She just said, okay, son, if this is what you want to do, I'll support you, because she always knew that I gave 100% in everything I did, even because I used to be a sportsman. I mean, I still am, to be fair, 'cause I do calisthenics, but, whatever it was, tennis, football, cricket, basketball, swimming, table tennis, lawn tennis, you name it, I've done
You
it.
did it.
And yeah, and she would buy the rackets, the shoes, the gear, the shin pads, the football boots, whatever it was. And that's what she did. So I guess, I have a
See,
lot to pay
even
tribute to her for this.
even that is a form of listening. I can feel my boy would do better with those shoes or these shin guards, or I so want him to live his life that I'll pick up. He needs these things. And if I can afford it, I want to go out and get it for him. That's a good mom that's really listening to what her kid needs.
Wow, that's really nice to say. Thank you. So you've described your own story as a process of quotation marks coming home. What does home mean to you today compared to what it meant when you first started this journey?
You mean started this journey when I became an adult in my 20s or something?
When you first started this journey and the work you do?
I think it got more deeper and more sophisticated over the years. That to me, coming home, like I mentioned earlier, is a little bit like meditating, quieting all those programs that you spoke about earlier, quieting all those filters, and being so quiet that I could hear things that a moment ago I wouldn't have heard. And that doesn't only apply to other people. I'm a drummer. So to really listen to other drummers while we're coming in with rhythms is vitally important. And it's frustrating to me when I'm drumming with a group and one person's off the downbeat. I can hear it and it bugs me that why can't you hear that you're off? So whether it's drumming or walking in the woods and hearing the birds, to me, coming home is being present in the moment so that I'm receiving. Again, it's easy as a man, as a privileged man, to put out into the world what I want, what I'm going to do. It's much more difficult and subtle to be quiet and listen and be present without expression. And to me, that changed my world. It changed my life.
Wow,
And I'll tell you,
yeah, go on.
I'll tell you a little cute story. My partner, Davida, we went out to dinner, our first date. And I didn't know if it was a right thing. We had been friends for 12 years, and I thought we should probably just stay friends. And to make a long story short, we ended up getting together. And I said, why? And she said, I had never been listened to like that. So I wrote in the book, listening isn't only good for the other person, it's good for you. You get to hook up with a beautiful, sexy, intelligent, articulate woman. So side benefits to really listening.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I find that because my mother has said a lot of things to me that is only as an adult know that they really made sense. And she always used to say, listening, Todd, you need to pay attention and to listen to what people are saying. And it's kind of true because I find that today is very much about getting our points across, but not listening to the other person's point of view to be able to respond to it, because we tend to just respond based on necessarily, I guess you could say, tonality and not necessarily the substance of what is there. So right. I think that, the things that we're going to talk about and your skill set is really something that I think is quite needed today, because especially in the geopolitical space where, I'm not trying to get too political here, but I think if politicians were to listen a bit more to people and the people across sitting from them, I think that a lot more could be done. But they spend more time talking than actually listening. So right. Maybe we need to send the politicians to Dr. Randall Alifano so that they can get some therapy and learn to listen, because I think they would benefit greatly with what you've shared so far, right? I think they could maybe make changes if they listened.
That would be lovely. I doubt that they'll ever show up.
Yeah, me too, because they just do what they feel like, So you said Childhood wounds and defenses shape the persona men carry into adulthood. What are the most common masks men wear, and how do those masks silently control their lives?
I don't know, because I think it's as varied as there are individual men who are raised by individual families. Um, but what I notice a lot with men is they will protect themselves from made up threats that they think are right around the corner. So they're already a little bit like this without even knowing it. There's a, and they can feel it once they start exploring it. They can feel a somatic contraction, especially in the belly. Their solar plexus is a little locked up because we've been taught, like you were mentioning earlier, the world can be a harsh place. Get ready for it. Your mama is doing this beautiful thing of going, yeah, but listen, quiet down and listen. And I love that she gives you that wisdom. But most men are raised, get ready. You fight for everything. You compete for everything. And there's some truth to that, no doubt. But it makes us a little bit like this. Like I remember growing up. I grew up in New York. When I was, I think, 16, I studied martial arts because you had to be ready. And, what a program. Look, buddy, you better learn how to fight because you're on the street and who knows what's going to happen. And I think, well, of course, then I'm going to be looking around. Like, am I safe or am I not? Now, when I'm playing football, I don't want to listen to the running back coming at me as a cornerback. I want to knock him down. So that kind of competition I like, but it's all agreed upon. We're going to bring all of our ferocity to this game. Great, let's do it. But when it comes to real contact, for men to settle down and not have to always express themselves in the hopes of contact, but to realize maybe what my partner is saying of, hey, I wish you would listen more or get what it's like for me. They're actually suggesting some wisdom here of take a breath, ask a question, get to know me. And when you do, what I notice for men, that contraction opens up. They don't have to be so afraid of her doing some number on them. And what I like to talk about with men in my practice is I'll say, I'm about to use a dirty word. You ready? Dependency. Because men, we're not dependent. And I said, I mean dependency like you've got my back, right? My partner, you got my back. I can depend on you that push comes to shove, we've got each other's back. And for men, oftentimes that's hard because we're so used to being alone and fighting to get by. So for men to drop into, if I'm with my woman and I can depend on her, I know she's got my back. If I hurt, she's going to show up. If I need something, she wants to show up. Man, that's a game changer for men.
Absolutely, I agree. The thing is that I don't know where it comes from, but if you talk to a lot of men today, they don't have that belief that if something happens, that they have a woman that they could depend on, right?
Right, that's right.
And I think because of that, men overcompensate because the sad reality is that, especially today, modern day dating, any sort of weakness to most girls, not all girls, but there's a large percentage of modern girls that are like this. Any sort of weakness or failure in a man, that's it. They walk away and leave. And I was telling a friend of mine that the ideal woman is sort of like how, because I was a kid in the 80s and in the 90s, Chicago Bulls were the best team. So I always use the analogy of Michael Jordan and Pippen. No, I mean, you could take that to another level and add in Rodman, but that would be for that type of a story. But I thought that Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were the best dynamic duo in the game at the time, where Michael Jordan was the lead and the burden was on him, a performance, and he would rise all the time. But when Michael had an off day, boom, Pippen used to come up with a triple-double every single time. And then if either them are off, then Rodman comes in, which is why he's saying that Rodman was still very important. But for this analogy, Pippen always stepped up. And it's like he knew he was a number two. he played his role, and the day Michael was off, triple double, boom. And then be like, wait, Pippin just turned up. But because he understood his role and Michael had confidence that if something was off for him mentally, Pippin was there. But most men today believe that they have to be Jordan, Pippin, and Rodman because the woman in their life is no Pippin. It's just not there. And I don't know why that dynamic is there, but what it has done to relationships today in the modern sense, obviously, like I said, not all relationships are not all women, but a lot of men just don't feel like there's anyone there that has their back, you know? And I saw an interesting compilation of, like man on the street interviews, and they were asking men, so if something happens and you needed help, who's there for you? And they all said no one. And this is the reality that men face. And, most people that are, well, I guess I can say most women don't even know that men just don't feel like they have that, like if they have their back, if anything happens,
Right. They're that alone. My bias would be, what is that man doing to make an intimate contact with, for example, a partner, so that they're bringing a vulnerability. They're testing the relationship through a vulnerability, so that when the woman does show up, he goes, "Oh, that's different." Excuse me. Not unlike the story I told you about these severely traumatized individuals, they were totally alone. They didn't believe anybody would want to hear from them. And as soon as someone did start to listen to them, they started to blossom. They came out of their, quote, pathologies, psychological pathologies, and started to thrive in the world. And I think it's the same with men and with women, because I think you could make that argument both ways. They don't feel like their partner has their back. And I would when I work with couples, I challenge, can you bring a vulnerability and let's see how your partner responds? Because if they start shaming you, then you're right. You're alone. We got to work on that, because they're not really listening anymore. But 9 times out of 10, as soon as the woman or the man brings some vulnerability, the other person goes, "Oh, really? That's how you feel?" And they change. They open, and they want to hear what it's like. So I would challenge men: if you feel alone, take a look at what you're doing to consciously or unconsciously support the notion that you're alone, by stepping back, by not coming forward.
Very interesting. So basically, I guess the same way women give men tests, men can give women tests to see, okay, would she be there to step up? So then now and then you can say, okay, well, if she didn't step up, this is something that we need to work on to improve the relationship, because in reality, I feel alone and I don't feel like I've got any help.
Right. I can tell you a little story. My lady Davita, I had to go to Arizona for a medical procedure, and I'm alone. That's one of my core issues. I know I'm alone. So I said, "You don't need to go. I'll fly there, get a hotel, I'll do the procedure, no worries." And she was like, "Okay, that feels weird." And then one day she came up to me and she said, if it was I that had to go to Arizona for this medical treatment, would you insist on coming? I said, "Absolutely." She said, "I'm coming to Arizona. It's non-negotiable. I'm coming with you." And
Wow.
the way she said it, it was so grounded. It was, "I've got your back. Even if you don't think I've got it, I'm coming." It was like a demand. And I could feel it, boom, and went right into this alone place, this little secluded place in my chest of, she's got me. She's going to come with me. And I can't do any of my numbers to say, "I'm fine, don't worry about it." And she came with me. And I thought, those moments, those little moments that get through those filters, those defenses, so that I can land in, okay, I'm not the only caretaker around here. She wants to do right by me too. That was powerful.
Absolutely. Like I said, when Jordan has Pippin, Jordan can have confidence that if anything happens, Pippin is there. And it is very much, and that's why I like the Jordan Pippin analogy, because most men get it. And maybe women not necessarily, because they may not be into sports or basketball, but if they want to really understand it better, girls, go and check out some of the old 90s games with Jordan and Pippen and you understand what it means. Very, very much what we're talking about here is that dynamic duo aspect where every single time Jordan failed, boom, Pippen was there. This is why they won 6 rings, you know?
Yeah, right.
So you talk about internal chatter, that voice that tells us to perform, protect, or overthink. What is the root of this chatter and how can men quiet it without falling into repression?
Yeah. That's a really deep and good question. I think it's a question that's been with us since humans existed, is how to get out of our head all the programming that made those voices in our head and just be quiet. And I think that's where meditation comes in. And that's why I think real listening is a meditation practice. Because, or else, even with therapists, when I consult with other therapists, they're busy in their head trying to figure out what they should do for the client. And even if their intentions are good, I suggest temporarily put those to the side. Don't have intentions. Don't think about what pathology am I picking up. Ask questions until you have a felt experience of what it's like over there. Then you can listen to the busyness of your brain. But you're not going to really hear them. You're not going to really hear the drumming, the birds out in nature, with that noise always going on in your head. So if you really want to listen in the raw, part of that is being an empty vessel so that you can receive. And what I say to men, which is terrifying for them sometimes, is one way to look at it is you're allowing yourself to be penetrated, your heart to be penetrated by what the other person's saying. It just gets in there. Now, the good thing about that.
Right. That's super scary. Like.
Right. Because it's not our way. But to do it, there's with clients through the years, suddenly there's an intimacy, there's a connection that a moment ago was not there and could not happen unless I was coming home to the quiet.
Very interesting. What I'm finding is that today, in this world now, all of these sort of like programming all the programming that we've had is being gradually deprogrammed with information like what you're sharing now. And I can see that if we were to embrace a lot of these new sets of knowledge coming about, we can have a real change in humanity. But it is a matter then of being stuck in our old ways. And even though, like I said just now, that, it's very scary, with the right person, I would have no problem in doing that. But the thing is now, from a man's point of view, is how to tell who's the right person, because that vulnerability, I think, needs to be earned, and it can't be just given away willy-nilly to every woman, because there's certain elements that make men attractive to women. And while vulnerability is like lower down the line, I think that comes when there's this trust, when that Pippin-esque sort of personality is starting to come out, where you're like, okay, well, she's showing signs that she could be Pippin. So then you would feel comfortable to go that step. But if, you're not seeing signs that Pippin is there, I think is not necessarily wise to show that vulnerability, because I think it has to be something earned, and just given away.
Let me ask you a question. So in your partnerships, how did you test your vulnerability in the hands of your woman?
Well, the thing is that I didn't have the knowledge that I have today where I would test it. Situations would arise and you would learn, oh, well, they don't actually have my back. And they left. Now, today, I ask questions like, okay, how do you deal with fear? So first thing is a very strange question. I say, okay, let me explain, because I know I get her to ask another question. I says, well, okay, there's a classic one. I says, let's say you were afraid of public speaking and you got a great opportunity to speak on stage in front of like 1,000 people. And this opportunity would absolutely change your entire life, level up every aspect of you, but you're terrified to speak in public. What would you do? So for me, now that is actually one of the questions I ask women who I think are a potential candidate that I take seriously. And the reason is that I want to see how they're going to deal with difficult situations that dealing with their fears. Now, and the reason why I ask that question is that I am terrified of certain things, but I'm very comfortable to be uncomfortable because I know it's going to give me growth. So there will be a point in time where I will have that internal chat of like, I'm not doing it. But after what no, this is what I'm afraid of. I'm going to do it anyway.
Yes.
So these are kind of questions I ask. So this is what I said at the time years ago. I didn't have the knowledge to even ask questions like that or to test. It was just the test came, then I got the lesson, and then we moved on, you know?
Because the answer you got satisfied you there?
You mean back then or no?
I don't know.
Well,
but
no, when I ask that question, it gives me an ability to see exactly what kind of personality I'm dealing with.
And then can you bring vulnerability?
If the person says, depends on the answer, then I can see, okay, well, there are steps that I can do to have vulnerability released at certain stages where bit by bit by bit by bit, where, like I said, it's something that I think needs to be earned, right?
Yes.
So that I can get trust, because I don't think it's just go around being vulnerable to everybody, because
not a good idea. Yeah.
not a good idea, you know what I mean? But yes, now with the understanding I have of myself, and especially from talking to so many people on this show and relationships of recent years, there's certain like tests, I guess you could call it tests or questions that I would ask to find out exactly the personality I'm dealing with, to see, okay, well, I can listen now to find out what's going on in their childhood, because what I realized that all these things come from childhood. And then it's a matter of asking other questions for get them to see it was just a story, and they can do their own process, you know? So.
Well said. And if I may jump on that, we men are taught I think you could almost say this universally. We men are taught to be tough, to face life. And
Yes.
Vulnerability is a weakness. We've been trained to think vulnerability is a weakness. And sometimes it is. I mean, if I'm on the street and someone wants to fight with me, I don't want to be vulnerable. So there's wisdom to that out in the world, but we're so off balance in that direction that when I work with a man and he drops into vulnerability, my bias now is that was incredibly courageous. That was the kind of courage not many men are willing to drop into, because that vulnerability means your defenses are gone, or at least relaxed, and you could get hurt. So for you to take that risk, either I'm working with them individually or their partners there, I praise them, because I know every step along that cracking open, allowing penetration, allowing vulnerability to be out on the table, it's an incredible act of courage. So I want to redefine what it is to be a man along the lines of, yeah, when you're going to play football, go get them. When you want to make real contact with your partner, your ability to be vulnerable, to be that courageous, that's the way to be a man, is to have access to both sides of that equation.
Yes, I've absolutely, and I totally agree with that, because this is what has actually been happening to me in my personal life, and because I rely a lot now on intuition. So like basically my assistant, she saw your name and stuff, and I read it and I was like, as I was reading up on your website and stuff, it was just like, yeah, the intuition was just like, okay, yep, that's it. I didn't read too much, and that was it. I decided, okay, let's get him on the show and talk with him. And this is how I operate now. We're, guess, for the lack of better word, feelings, but it's actually a higher level of feeling. It's called intuition.
Yes.
And whenever that voice or that gut feeling comes and tells me to do something, I always do it now. Because when I don't follow it, things always don't turn out the way they should. So
Great.
I totally agree what you're talking about, the balance. I totally get it.
And that's listening. Listening isn't only, I would listen
True.
to you. It's how to listen to that quiet whisper of intuition that's not going to yell at me if I'm all busy in my head. I have to be somewhat quiet to hear, oh, right, I want to go that way, or I want to go this way, or I don't want to go that way. So I'm a big fan of what you're saying, because that's how I am, for example, in my office. I sit and I'm quiet, and I hear from someplace in me intuition that tells me, oh, like I could tell you yesterday, I was having a phone call with a new potential client. She's a woman who's a therapist, and she was talking, and I was quiet, and she didn't say anything about crying, but I felt tears. So I said, we don't know each other, but as you're talking, I just feel like there are tears right behind your words. She started crying. We're on the phone with each other. And she said, this is amazing. I've been in therapy for 25 years. I never cry in therapy. I'm talking to you for the first time on the telephone. You somehow know there are tears behind, and then the tears come. And I thought, well, that's magic. This is wonderful for both of us. But I would never have heard that little voice in me if I was busy thinking, what's this woman about? And what, I have to diagnose her, or whatever mumbo jumbo is going on in my head. I would have never heard that quiet whisper. And I'm so glad that you hear it too.
Oh, yes. It is my guiding light now. Honestly, I just trust the voice, as I call it. And that's the only way I can express it. It talks to me.
Yes.
And I just have to just give it reverence and respect. And whenever it tells me do this, and it's always very direct, short sentences.
Right.
Sometimes no more than 3 words.
Right.
Most of the time it's 2 words. And I just follow. And I still use a lot of logic, but I use, even like my assistant, she never had training to do what she does with me. And I spoke to her, and the voice said to me, get her. Because it was someone else that had much more experience. And she, honestly, because she listens to my show, she helps me a lot. If I didn't have her, I wouldn't be as thorough as I am. She really, really helps me a lot. And it's because like I just listen to that voice, and she helps me pick the people that come on the show as well. And she went through the list, and she says, yeah, there's Randall. You know what I mean? So I just want to publicly thank her as well.
So you can depend on her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel I can depend on her,
And a little while ago, you asked me about coming home. To me,
Yes.
you just nailed it. I know I'm home if I hear that intuition. If I hear, oh, she's the one, she's going to be my assistant, you're home. You know exactly what right action is.
Yeah, definitely. So if you had to name the one unconscious filter that destroys intimacy more than any other, what would it be? And how have you seen it play out in marriages, fatherhood, and even leadership?
God, that's a question and a half. I have an answer, but I don't know how much of my own filters are guiding this answer, because I do think it's aloneness. We presume, without even thinking about it, that we're alone in the world. So a story that's coming up for me is, if a 4-year-old boy has a nightmare and starts yelling, "Papa, Papa," and the father comes in and says, "What's going on?" There's a monster under the bed. Look, there's no monster under the bed. I have to get up early to go to work. Shut up, go to sleep. The child learns, don't be vulnerable. Fear equals shaming. So shut up. And now that child's alone. If the papa comes in and goes, baby, what happened? Monster under the bed. And the dad sits on the bed. What was the monster like? Do you want me to look under the bed with you? I'll sit here with you. The child learns fear, vulnerability. I have a good person that comes and sits with me. I'm not alone. So the first child grows up, and you know, if the father does that once, he's done it 100 times in one way or the other. Why didn't you hit that? What, you know, why did you strike out? You know, whatever. That kid learns I'm alone in the world and I have to watch my back all the time. The other child has a better chance of, I can bring these tender things, these scary things, whatever, and I have an expectation that someone will show up for me, that the world wants to be good to me here. So I think, unfortunately, most of us are more towards the first family system, where parents are too busy, too unconscious, too whatever, too stressed to really give their kid that time. Like I teach parents, if you're dealing with a 12-year-old and they're trying to tell you they're angry at you, ask questions, because they can't articulate clearly what you did that they don't like. And if you right away say, don't you talk to me with that tone, you're adding to the injury they're trying to tell you about. Be curious. Say, what did I do that made you angry? And give them time to find language. Then we can start to reverse the pattern. Then that ingrained aloneness starts to move a little bit. And so I think how we were taught as children teaches us that somewhere along the continuum of aloneness where we land there, and how to bust out of it. That's why what you were saying earlier about, you know, hooking up with a partner. To me, one of the reasons we want to hook up with a really good partner is we want someone that's devoted to us sufficiently that we don't feel alone anymore. Even if we don't like that they do this thing or that thing, the deeper material of, like, she's got my back. Or when I'm courageous enough to say, you know, I'm scared. I've got this huge bill. I don't know how to pay it. Instead of them going, well, you should have thought of that before, right? They say, let's talk about it, baby. What happened? Then we're not so alone.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, I think as aloneness, like, because I think by nature we're social creatures, and
Yes.
it's almost like this subconscious fear of aloneness that we all have. Because I mean, if you look at all the animals, the animal kingdom, they all pair up. We are mammals, and we end up pairing up. So I guess maybe it's all rooted in the belief or thought of aloneness. So
That we're taught.
yeah, that we're taught. Yeah. So many men equate vulnerability with weakness.
Exactly.
How do you reframe vulnerability as a deeper form of masculine strength?
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said earlier, I think it's ridiculously courageous for we men who were taught to be tough at all times to challenge that world philosophy and bring vulnerability. It's an act of courage. That's the kind of man I respect. I have very little respect for a man that's so tight, so masculine, if you will, that they're so alone that they have no awareness of their own vulnerability. I have a lot of respect for men who challenge that and make attempts at dropping in underneath their defenses, underneath all their protection mechanisms, to bring something more tender, more open, more that gives the other more access to what's going on inside, underneath those protection mechanisms. That to me is a man I respect.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. It takes, I think, way more strength to be vulnerable than it is to put up the appearance of always being strong. You know?
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Super. So your book, Listening in the Raw, speaks about receptivity. What does it mean to listen in the raw, and how is it different from ordinary listening?
Who wrote these questions? They're awesome. They're really awesome.
Thank you.
I, t- I titled the book Listening in the Raw because I wanted to make a connection with being naked. That to listen in the raw to me is an act of courage. Because, like as a therapist, I don't sit down with a client, or especially a new client, thinking, I know what's going on. I think I don't know what's going on. And to me, again, being able to sit in the unknown without any, I guess, defensive structure that pretends like I know what's going on when I don't. It makes one feel naked, raw, permeable. So, and that was my experience. My dissertation was called Empathic Surrender, because what I noticed when I was talking to people like these individuals I talked about in the beginning of our talk today, I literally had no idea what was going on. And so for me to be able to be comfortable in that and not know what's going on and to really listen, I felt naked. I didn't have the defense of, I'm the therapist, I know what's going on. Watch me say important words like anxiety disorder or whatever. It was more, I'm inviting you to find a way, I'm inviting us to find a way that you get inside me. This, even the horror that you're talking about, I can feel it from the inside out. That's the rawness of it. It's not easy. It takes some courage. And a strong grounding to be able to be so moved by another person's pain, struggle, vulnerability, whatever it is. So to me, that's the power and that's the meaning of listening in the raw. And what I mean by empathic surrender is, don't use empathy as a technique, because everybody knows it's a technique. They may not say anything, but they'll take a millimeter back. They can feel it. But if you're surrendered, you're just open, they take steps forward because they can feel that too.
Wow, that's powerful.
Oh,
so,
good.
Super. You've said true listening is not about advice or fixing, but about presence and love. Why do so many of us feel the urge to jump in and fix, and how do we resist it?
Again, Todd, these questions. I think it's primarily about fear. If I know what's going on, if I give you advice, premature advice, that's about me being afraid to be sitting in the unknown until I really get what it's like for you from the inside out. So when I consult with therapists, oftentimes I'll tell them, stop trying to fix anybody. Stop trying to figure them out. Follow your innate curiosity until you have a felt sense of what it's like for them. Whether their boss is yelling at them, what's it like? Don't give advice right away of, well, you should speak back to them, or he doesn't get you, or it's not helpful. Just listen and ask questions until you get what it's like for that person that the boss is whatever, shaming them the way they are. Then advice, kind of like what you were saying earlier about intuition, it comes. But it comes in an organic way, not in a noisy head way.
So I guess part of it then as well with the listening is to ask questions, because by asking questions then you can get to the root causes and to get to what's really causing the disturbance.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Questions are the way.
You know, it's mad because this is something that I've started to do in my relationships as well, where I tend to ask questions, because I find that like when you start to really understand social dynamics between men and women, and also the interdynamics between men and men, find that there's a commonality where we don't really ask enough questions. Because like you can have a mate and he be telling you something and you get upset, but do we really ask, well, why did you say that? Or what caused you to do that? And I got this sort of like understanding because part of my job is that I am in sales, and I'm a online fitness. I'm an online coach, so I teach fitness and stuff.
Oh,
I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. And one of the things that I was taught is in order to sell is actually not to sell. Your job is to find out what are the person's problems. So you have to ask questions to get to what is really their pain, what are their obstacles, and then you can find out now, all right, because this is my skill set, you say, well, because of X, Y, and Z, I have the solution for X, Y, and Z. So what happens then is that you don't really sell, you find out the problem and give the solution. So it just becomes like, okay, well, it makes sense to do, right? Because now it's not really selling. So this is why, like, even with this show that I have now, where I ask questions, because I mean, my brain is a little bit different because I used to be a civil engineer. So I look at structures and stuff, and I find that there are a lot of podcasts which, is, while it can work for them, is open conversations. For me, I like a little bit of order and structure because that's just how my brain works. That's the logical part of me now, where I like, okay, I want to find out who's this guy Randall, what was his past, what is his skill set, how can he add value, X, Y, and Z. So this is why, like, questions that I have are like this, because it's like, I want to make you look good. I want to make your knowledge, because you have 40 years of listening, like me, I'm still learning here. I'm learning from you, just talking to you. So it's like, how can I learn? And how can the other people learn listening to this?
Yeah.
So,
good.
I find that questions are a good way to really get, like, what's bothering this person. You know what I mean? Like, because it may not even be you. They may have just been having a bad day. Their dog could have died, or someone cut them up on the motorway, and you know what I mean, they come in and they just dump it on you, right? So asking questions, I find, is much more powerful than necessarily going straight to the diagnosis and prescribe the solution.
Absolutely. Just the other day, I was talking to a client, a gay man who I totally love, just a beautiful man. And he was talking about when he was, I think it was 14, one of the older kids called him a faggot. And I could hear my straight man voice going, oh man, that must have sucked. Instead of doing that, though, I, again, kind of quieted, opened up and said, what was that like for you? Because I wanted to get from the inside out, what was it like for a kid who already knows he's gay to be out? And this is 30 years ago, almost 40 years ago for him. What was it like to be busted? What was it like? And I just kept on asking questions until this straight man could feel what it was like to be a gay kid, and the kind of the bully kid in the school is nailing you. Oh, you're a faggot. I wanted to get inside of that experience because it's so foreign to me. And he, described it more and more until I had a felt experience of, oh my God, that this is what it's like for you. And in that moment, I was closer to him than ever, even though we had such incredibly different childhoods. And I would have never gotten there if I thought, oh, I have to make him feel better about being a gay man, or I have to say, yeah, that bully was a bastard. Those initial responses, they can rip me off of really finding out what it's like for them from the inside out. So I never want to take the first bait. It's too seductive. Go for the deeper stuff.
You almost answered my question, but I think you probably have a lot more stories in there, because I was going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you, but I guess you can bring another story. Can you share a story either from your practice or personal life where true listening shifted an entire relationship dynamic in words never, in ways that words could never do.
Yeah. I have about 6,000 stories I could reference.
Okay, great.
I'll make it personal. I was talking to a particular client, asking questions because they, again, went through something I didn't understand. And as they were telling me a story about their childhood, I felt penetrated, like holy crap! It was like that for you as this 5-year-old girl, and my tears, my eyes filled up with tears, like, oh my God. And we were just quiet for a while, and she looked at me and she said, "Thank you." I mean, she was just so relieved that instead of me being the therapist, I just really got the conflict inside of her. And I had no words. It was just, and right away like that. Well, it wasn't like that. We paused for maybe 30 seconds just looking at each other. I think she was saying, "Are you for real? Are you really dropped in that much that you could feel me?" And then all she could say was, "Thank you." And I thought, wow, again, look at what you're teaching me about listening. This is what you needed. You didn't need some psychologist to tell you what was going on with you. You needed someone to join with you in this aloneness.
Well, you give me goosebumps, man. Like I felt exactly like what you were saying, right? I don't even know the situation, but I could feel in your words that how much you put yourself into that, like to feel like what it was like for her. So
Can I tell you another story?
Yeah, go on.
Again, I was maybe practicing for 2 years, so I was still quite new. And an Ethiopian woman, I was seeing her, and she was telling me about her history, her childhood. And maybe, I don't know, 3 months into the work, she came in and she was silent. And I thought, I know how to do this. I just sit and I'm quiet with her. And then I could feel anxiety bubbling up. 10 minutes have gone by. She's just looking down at the ground. And I said something I fell into being a therapist. And I said something like, yeah, sometimes it's really hard to speak. And she said, "You don't get it." She didn't even look at me. No, you don't get it. And so I thought, okay, I have to drop in. I have to really drop in and get what it's like. And I said something to the effect of, yeah, and really, really what you're hoping for is that someone could really sit with you or something. And she said, "You don't get it. There's only darkness here. No reason to live, no reason to die, just darkness." And I felt anger, like, hey, I'm doing the best I can over here, give me a break. And I thought, I'm missing the point. Drop in. So I just emptied myself, breathed into my belly and I don't know what the hell's going on with this woman. She's experienced something I have no idea about because I've never thought it's all dark. There's no reason to live or die. And I just dropped in, and suddenly I was like in this imagery where I was in the Arctic and it was night. It was just black night. And I was in it. I was like, holy crap. And then I looked up and she was looking at me and I said, "I get it." And the same thing that happened with that other woman, she stared at me and she was like staring at me. And then she softened and softened and softened and said, "Thank you." And the whole therapy just took a turn. And we joined in this Arctic nighttime of nothingness, emptiness, nothing to say, nothing to do, just alone, pain. And again, the whole work changed. And it was because she wouldn't let me off the hook. She wouldn't let me do these therapy techniques and get away with it. She was going to sit there until I showed up. And it still moves me to this day. And this was, I don't know, 35 years ago, whatever, that when I shut up and just dropped in, I was suddenly in this psychic experience that I've never experienced before. And there was no words. It wasn't like, oh, this is really cool. What happened? No, it was just, I get it. Like, holy shit. And it was magic. So it's those types of things that taught me. Shut up and listen.
It's almost like less is more.
Yes, less is more.
Okay. So you've described listening as intimacy itself. How can men use listening to deepen connections with their partners, children, or even colleagues?
I think initially to really desire to get to know their partner, their children, their colleagues, to shift their intention from, I want you to get me, and have more balance with, I want to get you. I want to get what it's like for you. So the father that walks into the child who has a nightmare, do you want to get what it's like for that boy? Or do you want to yell at him because you got to get up for work tomorrow morning? Make a different choice.
So that's quite interesting. So this is almost like, could we talk? Because I always say all the time that if you want to find your purpose, part of it is doing acts of service, and you will end up finding what your purpose is. So if we use that analogy now, basically, if you want to improve your relationships, you should try to put yourself as much as possible into the shoes as the other person in order for you to get what it's like for them. So then know the intimacy itself, whether it is sexual, platonic, or in terms of business relationship, can improve, because instead of you dropping on the table, this is how I'm like, this is what I am, expect X, Y, Z. Your first thing then is like, okay, let me find out about you and find out what it's like for you first. Then I can navigate between the parts that give you the most trouble, your fears and traumas, and then we can work with it instead of it just coming up and blowing up. Does that kind of like make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yes. What you're reminding me of is, if I'm a New York Italian, so anger is my second language. I can get angry like that, but I hardly ever get anxious for whatever reason. If I'm with a partner that gets anxious and doesn't get angry, if I say, God damn it, she may go, and if she gets anxious, that might me think, what? It's a waste of time. Why are you getting anxious? If I ask questions about why is she anxious, what's going on, and she can tell me a story about, I don't know what, her dad abandoned her, let's say. And so when I get a little angry or frustrated, it hits that raw nerve of, uh-oh, is he going? Because that's her history. Then if I don't really get it, I'm still going to go, look, I'm not leaving, okay? Just calm down with something equally unhelpful. But if I really get it, when she gets anxious, I could think, oh, raw nerve has been hit. She's hurting. She's scared. What do I want to do then? Well, it's totally different now. Now I just want to get, oh, what I just did scared you, huh? And that, even just that, and if I'm genuine, not just, oh, when you got to, but really, then she can drop in. She doesn't have to protect herself. She can go, yeah, I just got triggered. Right. You get triggered. I get triggered. They get triggered. It's okay, buddy. You and me are in this together. And it's a slight turn. But if I don't make that turn, we're fighting about, she shouldn't get anxious. I shouldn't get angry forever. We're always fighting about it. As opposed to really hearing, if I get angry, there's something right underneath. If she gets anxious, there's something right underneath. I'm more curious about that.
Very, very interesting. Guys, we can take a very, very short break here to say, if this conversation is opening something up for you, take a moment right now, pause, subscribe, and share this with a man who needs it. And stay with us, because in just a moment, Randall is going to reveal why silence can heal, but also how silence can become a weapon that destroys intimacy when it's used to avoid connection. You don't want to miss that part. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Adriano_246 or at the Conscious Man 7 podcast, and my name, Todd Cave, on Facebook. Now back to Randall. So, Randall, you've said that presence is the foundation of connection. In your view, what is the difference between being present and simply being there?
Well, if someone's really simply being there, I think they're the same thing. if someone's efforting to do something, now they're a lot less present. They're a lot less just there because they have an intention in their mind. Like, for example, there have been a few times today you talked about the word healing. And I have a little issue with that when it comes to psychology. If I go to a doctor and I have a gash on my arm, I want it to heal. It makes perfect sense. But because psychology was born out of allopathy, out of medicine, we've incorporated a lot of their philosophy. That if someone comes in and they're hurting, I have to heal them. And what I realized was, wait a minute, you're not sick. You don't have a gash. You don't need to be healed. You need to be less alone. You need to be heard. So it takes all the pressure off me to find the healing agent. So one of the chapters in my book is on anxiety, that we've been taught anxiety bad. You shouldn't have anxiety. And if you have it and you can't regulate it yourself, you should take pills to fix it. Now, sometimes pills are absolutely necessary. So it's not like I'm anti-pill. But I am more biased towards, let's listen to the anxiety. Let's find a way where you could sit and hear the anxiety and see if there's a message in there. There's some wisdom in there that we haven't been able to translate yet. So again, it's not just I'm anxious, I've got to get rid of it because I was taught to get rid of it. I was taught I need to be healed around my anxiety. Maybe I just need to listen to it in a different way so that intuition that you were talking about earlier, that starts to speak. I'm anxious because whatever. I could tell you a story about that if you want.
Very, very interesting because I remember, when I was younger, a girl said to me that, I need you to be present, and I was trying to figure out at the time like what she meant by that, or is, what I mean, like, or just being there, because like I was trying to understand if there's like a difference between like, because you were saying that if there's an intention behind it, then it makes a difference than being present, right? Because so I was trying to like get, well, what would she have meant at the time when I was younger that she wanted me to be present even though I was actually there with her, so it was kind of like, what does she really mean?
So were you able to go after it? Were you able to say, so what am I not doing right? Or what do you wish I was doing differently?
Well, she had said, well, funnily, I guess you're not going to be surprised with my answer. She was like, I need you to listen more to me, right? So I was just trying to, think like, for someone now, younger, now coming into listening to this podcast, like, I mean, but I'm there, man. Like, what do you mean? Like, I need to be present. You know what I mean? Like, what does that really mean? So it's almost like to my younger self, trying to communicate to.
Right. And it's easy for, if a woman says to her man, I need you to be present, the man could hear it as a criticism. I'm not doing it right.
True.
I'm right here. What are you talking about?
True.
As opposed to, and that could be, the initial response, as opposed to, wait, how am I not present? What is it you're wanting me to do here that I'm missing?
Yeah, well, I'm hearing it. You know what I mean?
Hopefully she could then say, you seem distracted, or, I don't know, whatever she's missing in that contact. Hopefully with your genuine curiosity asking a question, she'll feel like, oh, you're here now because you're wanting to get what it's like for me. But for a man to shift from, what are you talking about? I'm sitting right in front of you, and go to, okay, maybe she's right. I don't know. But I'm going to ask a question to see what's up, what's going on for her. Maybe she has something to teach me about myself. Who knows?
True. So is silence always healing, or can it be harmful? How do men sometimes weaponize silence as avoidance, and what does that do to intimacy?
Yeah, no doubt. Silence can be used as the best moment of intimacy. It can be used as aggression. So a man that goes silent because the woman is doing X or Y, yeah, that could be an aggressive fuck you to the woman. On the other side, if, for example, the scenario we just developed, if she says, "I need you to be more present," and instead of me going with the initial, "What are you talking about?" I can be quiet for a second and find out where my curiosity is. Then that quiet, again, going back to what you said about intuition, something inside of me will speak to me that initial, "I don't like what you just told me about, I'm not present enough." That's quiet. It's silent. So another part of me can arise, and hopefully with some curiosity. So the silence can be a reverie for real connection. But if it's filtered through resentment or anger or any kind of defensiveness, yeah, it can be a destructive tool.
Very, very destructive. And what you were talking about, I guess you would call it passive aggressive, where like, you would use the silence to, like, I guess, attack the person, because we can't really attack. Well, I guess to say we shouldn't be attacking women. So that would be like our form of like attacking them, where we just like don't say anything, and then we weaponize it again in the relationship.
Right. There's a couple I was seeing where the woman is, as soon as I started seeing them, she was complaining that he goes away. And as soon as she started talking about how he goes away, he did this. And he was gone. Little smile on his face. So I thought, there it is. They're teaching me what this relationship is like. So I could tell the woman, "I need you to be quiet for a moment. I just want to work with him. As best as you can you tell me what it was like that she just criticized you?" And it took him a while. It was like, but eventually he got to, "All I hear is I do it wrong. So I don't know what to do except pull away." So his silence, it wasn't a "screw you." It was here we go again. I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to shut down. But once he got to that, he thought, I could say, "Is that what you want to continue to do? To shut down to protect yourself?" "No, of course not." "Okay, here we go." And then the work, we have a direction for that work.
Wow. So, okay, you've spoken about how listening requires us to sit in the unknown. Why is not knowing so terrifying for men, and how do we lean into it?
Again, I think this is how we're unfortunately raised throughout different cultures. If you're a man, if you're a grown up, you should know what's going on. And again, there's great wisdom to that. But if it becomes 100%, I have to know what's going on, I'm not receptive anymore. I've shut down hearing from the outside, and like we said earlier, hearing from the inside, because I have to know. It becomes a demand from the world, or else I'm not worthy. I'm not a man. And that's a total setup. And unfortunately, therapists are taught that. Therapists are taught, you need to know what's going on. You need to assess, diagnose, and treat the diagnosis. And so therapists, when they're trained to listen, the insidious part of that is so that you can figure out what's going on with them vis-a-vis diagnoses and treatment. And as soon as you're just contracted along the lines of what's the right pathology, adjustment disorder, schizotypal, borderline, if you're trying to fit them into a category, listening is truncated. You can't hear anymore. So to be able to sit in the unknown and put those filters away, even if what they're presenting is so depressed, there's something underneath that depression. There's a reason why. I don't want to just send them out to get some SSRI, some medicine. I want us to explore, there's a reason why you're depressed, most likely. It may just be biochemical, then therapy is not that helpful. But by and large, something happened to you that you shut down. You shut down your aliveness. Let's go after that. And that demands that I'm able to sit in the unknown for an extended period of time until I know, until I get it. But it's a felt experience of getting. It's not, let's see, father was an alcoholic, therefore they're going to be codependent. And so it's an act of courage to me to sit in the unknown until I have a different intuitive sense.
It's very interesting what you shared, because it was almost like if you were saying, even though your conscious mind may not know, your feeling mind is learning what is going on. So you're sort of like using a different sense, I guess you
Yeah.
can say,
Yes.
where you may not know, okay, like you said, this particular box, XYZ, but you're like, okay, let me feel this person's experience. Then I can get, oh, okay, this is where this is coming from.
Yeah.
This is what you're struggling with.
Yeah.
And then the intuition is like, here is the solution. But you got that from feeling the experience by basically going into the unknown, just not knowing. Like,
That's
so like when you first started to develop this, how did you feel? Because obviously, as men, we're really sort of like, we have to know because that's just the realm that our world works in as men. How did you feel then, like in that state where just don't know? Like literally is like, I don't have a clue, mate. You know what I mean? But I'm still here. How
yes.
were you able to deal with that? Because it's scary as a man to
Right.
just not know.
That's right. It's scary. That's why when men are able to do it, I think it's an act of courage. And the earlier story I told about that woman who went through this horror show, the fact was I had no idea what was going on. This was way above my pay grade. I could have pretended like I did, like all of her previous therapists. But the magic that happened between me and this woman was I have no idea what it was like growing up in that crazy sadistic family. And I want to know. My desire to know was more important to me than looking good. So I'm willing to bumble and stumble. I'm willing to be. One of the chapters in the book is on humility, because therapists, parents, partners, we need to get we don't know. That you know, neuroscience tells us our perceptual field is so profoundly limited. The sun looks white. I'm sorry, the sun looks yellow. It's actually white. It's yellow because it comes through the atmosphere. So all stars are white, but we think it's yellow. That little metaphor, fact rather, tells us anytime we think we know what's going on, we're probably deluding ourselves. If I could be humble, so even when I asked, like this woman that I saw years ago, even when I had an insight, I would say it through humility, knowing still don't know what's going on. I would say, so when your father did that, did it make you feel like this? It wouldn't be, oh, so your father did that and then you felt like that. It wouldn't be a statement. It would be, I'm still tiptoeing around trying to feel what it was really like for you. So I'll ask. The speaker can hear that I'm approaching this with humility. Not, in other words, I'm embracing that I don't know. That encourages them to step forth more and educate me about what it's like for them. Instead of, no, that's not what it was like for me. Instead of them having to correct me because I speak with authority, so now it's a struggle. It's a collaboration. We're both trying to walk this twisty, turny path to find out what's true for them.
Very, very, very powerful. Very powerful.
Okay.
So many men carry anger they don't know how to express. How does listening both to themselves and others help transform that anger instead of suppressing it?
Another good question. Big fan of not suppressing anger. And, when I was coming up in school in the 80s and 90s, it was all about catharsis, expressing feeling, expressing anger. So a lot of people were beating pillows. And now the emphasis is all about regulation, how to regulate emotions, affect. My bias, as you probably can guess from our discussion, is I do get angry easily. It comes very quickly, especially with computers. I always ask, first I have to register, okay, there's anger. What's right underneath it? Anger is almost always a secondary emotion. There's almost always something underneath it. And for example, for myself, when I get angry at a computer because it's not doing what I'm telling it to do, just 2 degrees shift is, oh, I feel powerless. I feel stupid. I don't know how to do this computer thing. There's a vulnerability. So my anger comes up like that because I was taught, don't be vulnerable. Handle this. But when I can drop into, I don't know what's going on, and as my partner taught me, come back to it later. I'll push the computer away, walk away. 10 minutes later, it's like, oh, right, this. And then I'm fine. So to be able to register anger as there's probably a vulnerable feeling right underneath that I'm protecting myself from experiencing. Then it's anger is protective. What's it protecting? And then it takes courage.
And would you say that under that layer, then is based on fear?
I think oftentimes anger is a cover for fear, yes. I think more generally, I would say it's a cover for some vulnerability that someone hasn't been able to find a way to hold yet. They're not quiet there.
So it's almost like your first emotion is almost like a front for a secondary emotion or feeling. And then there could be a third one under there. So it's almost like if the first reaction or emotion or expression is really the fake one. It's not even the underbelly of what is really bothering you.
That's right. It's a cover. And we men easily get seduced by that cover. Why are you angry? Because you did that thing. Okay. And what happened to you when you did that thing? That's a stupid question. They just get locked into the anger.
It's true, though,
And the sad part about that is they don't know that they're nailing the coffin even more to their aloneness. That the anger is pushing everybody away. And they're anchoring their aloneness.
Yeah. Because men, we struggle a lot when we get angry to really control it and really alchemize it into something else.
Right.
So yeah, this is interesting because I never thought of it like that, where your anger is actually a mask for a secondary or maybe even a third feeling or emotion or belief about yourself.
Yeah. Right.
So you've worked as a counselor, father, and partner. What's one lesson about listening you've learned the hard way, not from books, but from your own mistakes?
I never make mistakes.
I love the Italian in you,
man. I think all the things we've talked about today is when I don't really listen to other or myself, it always gets worse. I or the other person will double down on, for example, anger or aloneness or whatever it is. So I've learned innumerable times that when I'm not really listening to self or other, I'm exacerbating whatever the issue is. I'm making it worse. So even at my ripe old age, I still get tripped up. I'll still pigeonhole myself into this place that's reminiscent of when I was, 16 years old. That old historical family of origin trauma pull will pull me back in, and it'll still take me a moment of going, "What am I doing? I fell into that same place again." And then it's easier to step out of it, to not be trapped in the old trap.
Yeah. Very, 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 very interesting, because we create a lot of patterns, and these patterns tend to repeat themselves, and it takes extreme levels of courage and also knowing of yourself to realize, hold on a minute, I'm doing that thing again, and I want to break that pattern.
Right.
And that's really real courage comes into play, to be able to break that pattern,
That's right. Because we're not relying on what we've relied on our whole life. We're opening up, like your questions about the unknown or vulnerability. we're opening up to those fields that we were taught that's dangerous. You don't go there. That's a setup. And even though we've been so programmed to believe that, we head in that direction anyway. There's so much good juju in there. But we have
like that good juju.
But we have to be courageous enough to test the limits of it, to step into it a little bit, to feel it. And then, like you were asking earlier, we learn to be comfortable in the unknown. That ain't
earlier,
easy.
no, it's not. So earlier in this conversation, you had made a reference in terms of parenting and like with monsters and stuff. So in your experience, how does deep listening reshape parenting? And what do children really need to feel seen and safe?
Great question. I'm going to answer with a story. So I have twin boys. Now you have to understand the context is these boys were born. I was poor. I had to quit grad school. It was a mess. And I still regret, I was angry sometimes that I didn't warrant anger with my kids. So I came home from work one day and I had this little feathered stained glass over the stereo cabinet. And I walked in and the kids were in the family room, my twin boys. They were maybe, I don't know, 8 years old or something. And the stained glass, the feathered glass was broken. And right away I could feel the anger. Like, what the? And I said, and I looked at their faces and they were like, uh-oh, Papa's, this ain't going to go well. And I thought, what am I doing? So I said, baby, what happened, you guys? Papa, we were playing with the ball. We know we're not supposed to play with the ball in the house, but we were playing with the ball in the house. And I threw it over Jesse's head and Jesse's butt hit the glass and it broke. And I could feel how scared they were of my potential anger. And I hated that feeling. So just feeling my filter, it shifted. And it was, oh, so it's Jesse's butt that broke the glass. So we should all be angry at Jesse's butt, huh? And they laughed and I laughed. And then we talked about, okay, so you shouldn't have played with the ball in the house. So what do you think we should do? They said, well, we should fix the glass. You guys, that's awesome. That's such a grown-up thing to say. How do you fix it? Well, you don't know, Papa. So I said, I'll make you a deal. I'll get it fixed and you guys pay for it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go. And I was a millimeter away from hurting them all the more when they were already scared of me. And thank God I caught it because they and I can still talk about, yeah, remember Jesse's butt broke the glass? They're 43 years old now. We can still joke about it because I didn't make a very common mistake of, did I not tell you not to play with the ball in the house? This is what happens. And they learned, shut down, pull away from Papa, don't bring fear, just get over this as quickly as possible.
Wow, that is absolutely. So, I mean, so you've been kind of like very much in tune with this sort of way of being from even when you had kids and stuff, which is quite remarkable to have that sort of like awareness, because the awareness you're talking about doesn't come till you get later in your life when you've had a lot of trauma and pain and suffering. But I had said earlier that listening is your superpower. And you said, well, it's not really my superpower. But I'm starting to think, actually, you're playing yourself down here a bit. Like, listening like it is really your superpower, mate.
It's really interesting you say that because a number of people have said that's my superpower. And I'll say, I'll take that. I'm going to have a cape that has a big L on it, listening.
Wow. So,
but don't idealize this. There are many times that I blew it with my kids, that I would lead with anger and then regret it. But yeah.
I know. But the thing is that I'll be honest, like when I look back at even like my past failed relationships, I'm in my 40s now. I never had this level of understanding, gnosis, to be able to even diffuse a situation. Once the situation turned south, it just got worse.
Yeah.
Now I have an ability to at least salvage the situation most of the time. I mean, sometimes I can still get angry or like say things, but for the most part now I'm much, much better at sort of like taking that deep breath and pausing first, thinking about how I'm going to respond, because I know that right now is a choice on where I go.
Yes,
But
it's a choice.
you're talking about this thing. I never even had a concept of even taking a deep breath in my 20s or 30s for that matter, right? So this is some good stuff you're sharing here.
And I love what you just said, because, somebody wrote a book a long time ago called The Body Speaks Its Mind. And so that's my anchor. I'll feel a contraction in my body if I'm not present. If I'm really quiet, my body's totally open. So that's a clue. When I don't breathe past my solar plexus into my belly, I know I'm off a little bit. So shut up, Randall. Take a breath. Feel your breath in your body. Is there any contraction? No, I'm good. Now I'm here. And a second ago,
Yeah,
it looked like I was here, because I can fake it, maybe, but I wasn't really. And you can pick it up. The other can pick it up. So, like I said earlier, in my office, I'm constantly breathing through my solar plexus and just feeling my breath, feeling my body expansive. So I don't have to do anything out of anxiety or fear or because I'm the authority. I can just be receptive. But if my body's tight, if I'm not breathing, I don't care what I think I'm doing. I'm not listening all the way.
right. So let's talk a little bit about receptivity. So you've described the importance of receptivity in partnerships. What happens to a marriage or long-term relationship when one partner refuses to listen?
Well, usually they break up. But in therapy, to me, that would be the work. Because and this oftentimes happens along gender lines, where the woman is complaining, you're not here, you don't listen, whatever. And the man feels like, oh, yeah, leave me alone. And ostensibly, it looks like the work is with the woman because she's angry or whatever. But my bias is, yeah, the work is over there. But the primary work is, buddy, where are you going? She's trying to tell you something and you're gone. You're not present. You're either like that client I told about, or I can feel their contraction in their body. And so it looks like because she's making all the noise, she's the problem. But at least equally so, the problem is he's shut down and she's knocking on the door. Listen to me, hear me, get me. And he's unable to do it. So for me, for that man to be receptive, to open and really hear what she's saying, again, like we mentioned before, it's a profound act of courage because he finds such protection in, here she goes again, blah, blah, blah. And he's judging her quietly. He's doing all kinds of things. What he doesn't realize is all of this is a self-protection. And oftentimes he doesn't even know what he's protecting. It's just so automatic pilot. So for me to work there and help him drop into, what's it like for you that she's going on about how you're failing her? There'll be, like you said, the first level, then the second level, then the third level, down to 100% of the time, some vulnerability that very frequently, if not all the time, triggers some early childhood trauma or pattern that hurt him. And he learned, turn it off, just shut it down.
Yeah, my guy tapped out, as they would say in modern language. He tapped out.
Right, exactly.
So in workplaces, leaders often think listening is weakness. How do you coach men in business to use listening as power rather than passivity?
If he's the boss and he wants performance out of his people, if he doesn't listen, they're going to feel isolated from him, isolated from the goal of the company, and they'll progressively shut down. Even if he has an agenda about how he wants this employee to work, if he listens first and holding kind of in his back pocket, but I need you to up your game along these lines, that I almost guarantee you that employee, if they feel heard and listened to first, they'll be much more agreeable to the notion of, oh, I need to up my game in this area because my boss is a good guy. He wants what's best for me. I want what's best for the business. Now we're in a relationship. But if all he does is point out you're screwing up, you're coming in late, I don't know, whatever the complaint is, now they're like that. So you can't expect them to give all that they have for the business because they've got to protect themselves from this whatever mean, withdrawn, judgmental boss. So take an extra 3 minutes and listen before you go with your agenda. And now,
Very interesting.
coaching is such a big thing here in the States now. That's what coaches often do, is they try to tell bosses, slow down, what was going on for the employee, how can you show up first for them? And I think it's a really good thing, even though it goes against the grain.
Very much so. Very much so. Because my old boss in England, he didn't really do much listening. He was just about, you know what I mean? He was like the hammer mouth. In fact, we used to have a nickname for him. We used to call him the Ayatollah because it was literally by decree, right? Like,
Right.
This is how it is, guys. Boom, boom, boom. You put up or shut up. That
Yeah.
was it.
Yeah.
So, we used to call him the Ayatollah.
Right.
And we used to hate working for him,
Of course.
And even like when he would give you feedback, feedback always felt more like criticism, more so than what it's supposed to be feedback, because he would never actually really listen to you. It was just about targets and numbers and stuff. And I get that was our job in terms of like quality assurance, but there was more decrees and telling us what to do than actually listening to us. So yeah, a lot of us really, I would say, hated working for him, to be honest with you.
And that's got to bring the company down a level because you're not that engaged, not that committed to the company, right?
No,
do
there
your
was
job.
no emotion. You wouldn't want to work like extra, because like I remember there were times when I actually went above and beyond my job and worked over unpaid overtime because I wanted to get stuff done. And there was like no recognition of even like what I did, but all I can get is all the criticism about the things that I didn't do.
Right.
When it was like, there's no actual appreciation for the things that I did do. Right? Which is why we used to call him the Ayatollah, you know?
So, like you were saying earlier, if we as men, as boys, are taught that that's what a man is, he knows what he wants, he gets other people to do it. And if you're not doing it, he's going to tell you about it. If that's what it takes to be a man, we're lost. And we're totally alone. He's alone. You're alone as the employee because you hate him. You don't want to even be around him. And there's no joy in the workplace. And that's going to affect everybody and whatever the product is in the business.
That's a fact. There was literally no joy in the workplace at all. There was always this deep pressure, dealing with him and him dealing with you and stuff like that. I can attest what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
So in therapy culture, people are often encouraged to talk it out. Do you think modern psychology has overemphasized talking and underemphasized listening?
Yes. 100% yes.
I did think you were going to say that.
You didn't think I was going to say that?
I did think you were going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're totally off balance. And what's painful for me is people go to therapy to be heard. And if the therapist isn't able to really drop in, but rather they feel like a pressure to be the authority, to be the healer, then the whole purpose is kind of undermined. They don't get, no, first and foremost, I want to know what it's like for you on the inside. Then we could talk about strategies, advice, things like that. But that's what everybody's aching for. And so, again, when I consult with therapists, I can't tell you how many times I'll tell them, stop trying. Stop trying for a moment. What is it that client is trying to communicate to you? Stop trying to fix them, heal them. Stop talking. And essentially ask questions, shut up and ask questions until you have that moment of, oh, that's what it's like. Then with humility say, so given that, do you think it would be helpful to talk to your husband about that? But ask like that, not like I'm the authority, because they'll shut down again. Maybe just, a half inch. But so, yes, I think as much as therapy is supposed to be about listening, we're actually taught to be the authority. We're actually taught to be the doctor and know what's going on and fix it. And I think that rips off the entire intent.
Very interesting. And I wonder if this is why a lot of people, I've heard, I should say, people say that most of the time you go to therapists and nothing changes, you get no help, it's just like a waste of money.
Yep.
And I guess this is the reason why, because there's no real like listening to find out, well, where's the person coming from, but it's just trying to put people in a box and diagnose, okay, you've got this condition, that, bit bipolar, this, next, oh, SSRIs, this, next. But,
yes,
you know what I mean? It's almost like they're, like you said, the authority, so it's like you have to know, but
right.
it's kind of, I guess it goes against all logic where you're actually saying openly, I actually don't know.
Yes.
But that is actually how I help you,
yes.
by being in the space where you're communicating, I really don't know what's bothering you.
Right.
So let me find out what's really bothering you.
Right. Because I really want to find out. I really want to know what it's like for you over there. That's magic. And I'm sure you've experienced it. Friends, partners, when there's a moment where you get, oh, you really want to know what's going on underneath everything. Wow. People love that.
Yeah, they do. So
Yeah, they do.
before we keep going, let's take a deep breath together. If what Randall is saying resonates, this is the perfect time to support the show. Hit subscribe, leave us a quick review, and share this episode with someone in your circle. Because next, Randall is about to reveal the single most destructive filter men carry in relationships, the hidden mechanism that silently kills intimacy more than anything else. You'll want to hear this. So, you've listened to thousands of stories over your career. Is there still a kind of listening you resist, whether it's to certain people or even parts of yourself?
Honestly, I think the answer is no. I think there's lots of times I'm not listening with the depth I could because I'm distracted or I'm stressed or, momentary things. Well, I'll tell you another story. Maybe 25 years ago, I was working with someone who had been busted twice on felony counts of rape. And he was a serial rapist. He would stalk women and rape them. And when he sat down and started telling me his story, I just wanted to punch him in the face. My anger was, you're the kind of bastard I want dead. I mean, I had such a reaction. And I thought, this reaction makes perfect sense to me. I don't know that I want to work with you. And he was honest enough to say, look, the only reason I'm here is I have 2 strikes against me. If I get popped again, I'm gone for life. 3 counts and you're out. And so I thought, okay, I don't know how to work with this guy because I just want him dead. And then we got into his childhood, how he remembers as a 3-year-old, as a 5-year-old, his mom drove him to an orphanage, put him on the stoop, rang the doorbell, ran into the car and drove away. And he was like, and the orphanage opened up the door and he lived in the orphanage, for the rest of his childhood. That cracked me open. I still wanted to kill him for being a rapist. But what I got was there may be a reason why he wants to abuse women. He wants to have power over them. And as disgusting as his acts were, I could feel him at a level that I would have never been able to feel him if I hadn't dropped underneath my reactivity. So it was very difficult for me to drop in and empathize with this guy who I hated what he did. But it was also magical for me to get, oh, I could have this reaction of, if you ever, come near a woman I know, I will do everything I can to hunt you down. It was like, ah. But equally have, oh my God, what you went through. Holy crap. And because of that, he progressively lost his desire to have power over women in that way. He could feel how hurt and alone he was. And he started to shift. So it taught me so much of, there's justification for my reactivity, but it's only a part of the story. There's still a brother in there who's suffering, has no idea how to get out of it, is only acting out. And that stretched me beyond.
Wow. And you know what? What you're saying confirms the, I guess, the saying, hurt people hurt other people.
Yes.
And in you saying that, I actually had like a bit of a reflection moment where I was like, okay, so people that do a lot of bad things in the world today, similar to what you're talking about, all of them had to have been hurt as children, and they just don't have any way to express or to tell or share that hurt with anybody that they can get past it. But instead, they just hurt other people because it's like their way to get back at the person that hurt them, or blame themselves, or to hurt themselves because they feel guilty. And it made me think, like, wow, like, it's true. Everyone's got a past, and it all comes from our childhood. And it'd be easy for us to criticize him and say what a terrible person he is for raping girls. But at the same time, that came from a deep trauma that he had that he just didn't know how to manage. It's just kind of like you can have these two, it's almost like cognitive dissonance. You have two thoughts and feelings that coexist at the same time, which is kind of like, wow, in one respect, you would want to hunt him down, but then in another respect, you're like, shh, I mean, he was really hurt. So this is why he hurts people. So if he can overcome that trauma, well, that means he would start hurting people, right?
Well, that's the hope. I mean, this is where embracing I don't know, I'm in the unknown is important.
Yeah.
Because maybe if we don't go into that vulnerability, he won't want to hurt people anymore. Maybe not. I really don't know. All I know is this is what I have to offer. And we'll try to see if you can drop into your vulnerability and you have these aggressive urges quiet down. But I have to go into those situations with humility, because if I go in with confidence, oh, I know what's going on, you got hurt as a kid, I'll feel them step away a little bit because I'm pretending like I know. No, I don't. Let me ask a few questions and we'll travel this path together.
Okay. Some people fear being fully heard because they're afraid of being exposed. Have you ever seen listening uncover truths people weren't ready to face?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we have no faith, or very little faith, that other people really want to hear us. So there's not much faith that if I open up, act of courage, and offer a vulnerability, we've been taught through our lives, especially men, but women too, that it's just going to backfire and we're going to get hurt all the more. So again, hearkening back to the woman I spoke about in the beginning, she knew, she had learned through parents, horrible neighbors that hurt her, therapists that couldn't listen. She got, I'm not going to be heard. It's not going to happen. And then when we met and I got that I don't understand and I just want to listen, everything changed for her, because all that programming, she was still, what I love about this is our longing to be heard, no matter how badly we've been abused, we never can fully extinguish our longing to be heard. We'll try and try throughout our life, maybe even in the wrong way, Like even when the man gets angry, there's a part of him aching to be heard. He's just going at it backwards. So if I can hold, we're all longing to be heard, again, everything quiets down. So their fear of being exposed is based on whenever they've done it in the past, they've gotten hurt. So exposure means more pain. If we can have a different level of relationship where exposure means you love me, you get me, you want to be with me, you're intrigued by me, you want to show up and have a real connection with me around where I hurt or I'm scared or whatever, that changes one's world as best as I can tell.
Yeah, definitely. So you've described receptivity as a doorway to collective healing. How can individual listening ripple onward into societal or even global change?
I'm sorry, that answer is very short for me. Just shut up and listen. When you have an urge to speak or to interrupt, regulate that a little bit. Ask yourself, what are they really trying to say? It's in my world, it's transformative, whether it's with my children, clients, my partner, my friends. I have a friend who's 88 years old, and the other day at lunch, we've known each other for 25 years. He said, whenever we go out to lunch, I'm always surprised how much I talk. Because he's been a therapist for 1,000 years. He said, I'm so used to being the one who listens. But when I'm with you, something I haven't even tracked, that you ask me questions I trust without even thinking about it. You really want to hear from me. So I found myself talking more than I talk with anybody else. That went right through my sternum into my heart of, that feels really good. So I think we're all aching for that.
Definitely. And from this conversation, I am going to, because I started to do this, but I'm going to make an active point in my life with business, relationships, friendships to listen more, because I've learned a ton from this conversation today, and I'm going to apply it in my life in all matters. Like I said, relationship, business, and friendships, because this conversation has really made me see that it is like a superpower that I need to incorporate into myself to get to the next level, because it's really the stories you've shared today have really resonated with me on a very, very deep level.
Ah.
So we can get you on this one. So if every man on earth practiced listening in the raw for just 1 week, what would change first in our culture?
Can I change the question? If everyone listened in the raw, ongoing, it's the end of therapy. Therapist.
You'd be out of a job.
That's right. I'd be out of a job. I don't think if people really dropped in and listened in the raw, I don't think you're going to do it for a week. To me, it's the most heartfelt connection I've ever experienced. That if you do it for a week, you're going to want to do it for 2 weeks and 5 weeks and 3 years and 10 years. Because that level of intimacy and real connection, at least my bias is, it's the best thing in the world. So
it
please
definitely, Randall, I tell you, you've really, one of the things like I have realized with this podcast is that I have actually changed as a person. I have grown a lot, and I knew before this conversation that I would get a lot of value and my listeners would get a lot of value. And certainly again, I have to thank my assistant. She is the one that put your name across for me to look at. And I really trust her in terms of the people that she picks. She makes good cases for people. And then when they look at it through her lens, then I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense. So I just want to thank her, and
me too.
thank you as well. Yeah. So with that being said, with that being said, Randall, tell the lovely people at the Conscious Man 7 where they can find you, what work, if they want to work with you, how they can do that, the book you want to plug, and on all that great stuff.
Well, they can just look me up on Google, and the book is on Amazon. And if they read it, I'd love to hear what they think of it. And I also want to
remind us
compliment
of
you.
the name of the book again, please.
Listening in the Raw, Coming Home to Receptivity. I want to thank you. You're a rare individual. I could see, even as we're talking, I could see you reading yourself, seeing where you were closed, where you're open, and even the questions that you brought, especially the questions that you brought after the initial question. I could feel your integrity, your real desire to get at what's true. And it wasn't so much I want to look good. It was, I want to get what's going on here. So I really appreciate that in a human and in a man. So it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Randall. Well, you really touched me with your kind words, because genuinely, my mission here is to try to add as much value to people as I can. I'm on a mission to help, touch, move, and inspire people to, pick up their cross, to die to their old selves, to confront their fears and traumas, and to bring about that shift, right? And I trusted last year when the voice said to me, do podcasts. And I said, okay. And I didn't have any idea that my show would develop like this, because one day I just didn't worry, because one of the things was, where am I going to find guests?
Right.
And now I don't actively look for guests. Yes, always turn up. And you know what I mean? People reach out to me on Instagram or email, or they apply to work with me on a forum and stuff like that. And I was very fortunate where this lady asked me if I wanted to be featured in their newsletter. And I said, okay. So again, I just trusted, and, I've grown a lot. So I just want to say to people, listen to that inner voice, trust it. It
Amen.
takes care of things in the background.
Amen.
And I have really, really enjoyed this conversation, So
Me too.
It's been very educational for me as a person, and made me analyze things about myself and my journey and stuff. And I honestly, the podcast has made me grow as a person in ways that I could never have imagined. And I just thank all the people that listen and help me out, my team, my assistant, I want to give real credit for, because without a good team, honestly, the podcast won't be growing to be what it is now. So I am very grateful for them. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that people may not know about. But I really love this conversation today.
Well, I'm sorry to say I have to compliment you again. And I want listeners to hear that. You listened, and you had some intuitive voice that say, do a podcast. It throws you right into the unknown. Well, I don't know how to do that. Will I ever get guests? Anxiety comes up, fears. But you stayed true to that intuitive voice. And like Kevin Costner said in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. But you had to face that fear of, I don't know how to do this. And you stayed with it anyway. And now here you are doing this great podcast because you were courageous enough and willing to experience that vulnerability of, I don't know how to do this, and go forward step by step anyway. And now here you are doing these great podcasts. So good for you, man. If your listeners enjoyed this, on November 6th, I'm being interviewed at CIIS, which is a graduate school in San Francisco. And Davida, my partner, will be interviewing me on November 6th about the book. So we'll go more in depth, chapter by chapter, about what the book's about, and then do Q&A. And it will be live streamed, so people can just tune in on the link, and it's free. So people could just check it out if they want.
Thank you, Randall. Thank you. You really touched me, man, honestly.
Good.
So, guys, Randall just shared a fantastic amount of information. And one of the things that he really touched on is that things are in our past. No, one of the things in our past that affects you is that you're not really in shape. So I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. So if you would like to go on an epic fitness journey, you would like to help overcome some of your deep fears of how you may look and overcome self-sabotage and stuff like that, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave on Facebook. And let's see if you're a good fit for the Compound Body Training Army, because I will help you to overcome all of these things. And I've said before, I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. So if you like to have conversations like this with me, one-on-one and on the inside, you know where to find me on my socials. And also, if you would like to also help to remove some fears and traumas, I can also help you to do that by helping you to get some magic mushrooms. And people that have PTSD and stuff like that, this is a great modality that will help you to do that. So again, if you would like to get yourself some magic mushrooms, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave on Facebook. And if you would like to support this podcast, you can do that by visiting our merch store. We have some cool tank tops, hoodies, shirts, and sweats. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And I have on one of those shirts today. It is called Truth Isn't Learned, Truth is Realized.
There it is.
So, guys, if you would like to be part of the Conscious Man 7 crew and be part of this movement that we're forming, visit our merch store, because you also represent visually in the world, and also you will help us with things like editing and finding some great guests like Randall to come on the show. And also, guys, if none of those things resonate with you, but you would still like to support the podcast and you don't really like ads in the podcast, you can also visit our Patreon or our locals community, and you will get perks like access to me one-on-one, early releases before it comes out to the public, and you will also get these shows ad-free. So link will be in the description of this podcast, or Patreon or locals link there. So guys, if Randall's words moved you, don't just keep listening, practice them. Tonight in your very next conversation, try listening without agenda, without fixing, without defending. See what happens, and then share this podcast with someone you believe deserves to be truly heard. That's how we seed healing, one raw moment of presence at a time. This has been another episode of the Conscious Man 7 podcast, where we go deep into the stories, teachings, and modalities to touch, move, and inspire you to go deep into yourself to make the changes you know that you must make. And from today's conversation, listening is definitely one of those. Randall, many thanks for being a guest on the Conscious Man 7 podcast. This has been a truly, truly awesome, and I'm going to use the word epic conversation.
Thanks,
because
Todd.
You've really made me take a step back and look at myself, because I was doing this listening thing, but this is like a whole different level that I can go to. So just want to thank you for being you and sharing your knowledge with us today. And I honestly think that people are going to get great value from this conversation.
That sounds like music to my ears. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So guys, until the next time, don't forget to keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. Speak to you soon. Cheers and namaste.